la lai 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 lai, ya la lai 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 la lai lai, ya la lai 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 la lai lai, lai 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 lai, ya la lai 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 la lai lai, ya la lai 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 la lai lai, ya la lai 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 la lai lai, lai 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 lai. Lai lai, lai 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 lai, lai lai, lai 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 lai, lai lai, lai 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 lai, lai lai, lai 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 lai. Ya la lai 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 la lai lai, ya la lai 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 la lai lai, ya la lai 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 la lai lai, lai 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 lai, ya la lai 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 la lai lai, ya la lai 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 la lai lai, ya la lai 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 la lai lai, lai 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 lai, ya la lai 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 la lai lai, ya la lai 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 la lai lai, ya la lai 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 la lai lai, lai 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 lai, lai lai, lai 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 lai, lai lai. Lai 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 lai, lai lai, lai 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 lai, lai lai, lai 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 lai, ya la lai la lai la lai lai, ya la lai 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 la lai lai. Ya la lai 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 la lai lai, lai 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 lai. Shabbat Shalom. I am so thrilled that you all are with us. I know that we are experiencing some difficulties with our website, and I am hopeful that you received the link and you shared the link with those around you. On our link, you can find below the live stream a copy of a PDF of our prayer book, Mishkan Tfilah. For those that will be following with the PDF, use a split screen or take a second device so that you can participate this evening. For those of you who have a prayer book in your home, we are thrilled that you will be following as we continue receiving the Sabbath together on this Shabbat Eve. 125. Where has this week vanished? Is it lost forever? Will I ever recover anything from it? The joy of life, the unexpected victory, the realized hope, the task unaccomplished. Will I ever be able to banish the memory of pain, the sting of defeat, the heaviness of boredom? On this day, let me keep for a while what must drift away. On this day, let me be free of the burdens that must return. On this day, Shabbat, abide. Help me to withdraw for a while from the flight of time, contain the retreat of the hours and the days from the grasp of frantic life. Let me learn to pause, if only for this day. Let me find peace on this day. Let me enter into a quiet world this day. On this day, Shabbat, abide. 128, paragraph 3. אב הרחמן ידיד נפש אב הרחמן משוך עבדך אל רצונך משוך עבדך יא לה לה לי 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 אל רצונך ירוץ עבדך כמו אייל ישתחווה אלי לה 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 לי 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 אל מול הדרך 129 דודי לי ואני לא הרואה בשושנים דודי לי ואני לא הרואה בשושנים מי זאת עולה מן המדבר מי זאת עולה מקוטרת מור ולבונה דודי לי ואני לא הרואה בשושנים יא לה 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 יא לה 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 יא לה 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 יא לה 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 יא לה 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 יא לה 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 יא לה 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 יא לה 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 142 138 Lecha Dodi as we pray paragraphs 1 and 2, 5 and 9, page 142. It is so interesting that over the ages and in synagogues throughout the world, when we pray Lecha Dodi, when we reach the final paragraph, paragraph 9, it is our tradition to stand up and face the entrance to the sanctuary. In doing so, we turn our hearts, we turn our prayers, we turn our deference to those that are most vulnerable. And as we honor the most vulnerable among us, affording them place amongst us, so we merit the blessings of a Sabbath of peace. Lecha lecha dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad Ishmi'anu el hamiuchad Adonai echad Ushmo echad L'shem u'tiferet V'litchila lecha lecha dodi Likrat kala Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi likrat kala Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha Ki hi mekor habracha Merosh mikedem nesucha Sof ma'aseh b'machsheva Techila lecha lecha dodi Likrat kala Pnei Pnei Shabbat Nikabela Lecha Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala Pnei Pnei Shabbat Nikabela. Paragraph 5. Hitoreri Kiva Orech Kumi Uri Shir Daveri Kivod Adonai Alayich Nigila Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala Pnei Shabbat Nikabela Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala Pnei Shabbat Nikabela. Paragraph 9. Boi Vishalom Ateret Ba'alav Gam B'simcha U'v'tzohala Toch Emunei Am Segula Boi Chala Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala Pnei Shabbat Nikabela Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala Pnei Shabbat Nikabela. La 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 la. As we welcome the Sabbath, so we recognize that there are angels in our midst, angels who are making it possible for us to walk around safely, to have our needs met in doctors' offices, in hospitals, in schools, in grocery stores. This evening, I hold here the angels who are making it possible for us to find our way to the other side of COVID. These nurses, Marie Delaparte, Christina Dubois, Teresa Eggers, Teresa Esposita, Lindsay Miller, Jay Montier, Cindy Pomerantz, Joni Savego, Lucinda Siegel, Christina Snell, Amy Staley, Ashley Wallace, Ben Wilder, Elisa Williams. These doctors, Linda Brandon, Amy Cagliulo, Joe Cohen, Shani David, Elliot Dresnick, Lee Gerson Friedman, Nick Friedman, Stephen Grossman, Elon Haley, Jan Hoyt, Roger Husted, Steve Kaplan, Martin Krakauer, Howie Leifer, Liz Levine, Aaron Daniel Levitt, Elle Levitt, Noah Alexander Levitt, Richard Levy, Matt Lordy, Hannah Mittenberg, Wendy Parrish, Stephen Schwartz, Jody Sumber, Andrea Nowski. These healthcare professionals, Yisrael Aga, Dara Clausen, Bar Levi Romer, Katie Monsky, Joe Schwendeman, Amy Skorka, Maureen Terranova, Jaron Whittam. These first responders, Ryan Coletti, Mark Donchek, Steve Fleischer, Don Hughes, Karen Leader, Abe Markovitz, Anthony Schleuderer, Russell Seymour, Kahana Skalnick. These educational professionals, Sandy Albelli, Cindy Binney, Cara Levine Brenner, Carolyn Cernitsky, Lauren DePola, Molly Levine Hunt, Jim Hunt, Tammy Logan, Joanne Miller, Tracy Pollack, Cameron Robb, Lauren Rose, Erin Swan, Sue Worthman, Karen Zrake, and Brett Zuckerman. These social workers and mental health professionals, Andrew Binney, Charlie DeGeorge, Anastasia Duval, Ionetti, Janalee Fish, Dara Heinlein, Deb Jones, Stephen Kahn, Lauren Petties, Julie Stein-Mikowski, Ty Merkel, Sherry Tessler. These grocery staff personnel, technicians, mechanics, maintenance people, and transportational professionals, Jill Smith, Mike Becker, Matthew Wilder, Mike Brewer, Brian Lestrange, and Danny Miller. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Shalom Aleichem. May peace be upon you. Alechem ha-shalom. May you be blessed, sheltered, and held in peace. 142. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Boachem l'shalom malachei hashalom malachei elyon. Mi melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Barchuni l'shalom malachei hashalom malachei elyon. Mi melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Tzeitchem l'shalom malachei hashalom malachei elyon. Mi melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. 145. Teach me, O Source, a blessing, a prayer, and the mystery of a ripened fruit on a withered leaf, and the freedom to see, to sense, to breathe, to know, to hope, to despair. Teach my lips a blessing, a hymn of praise as each morning and night you renew your days. Lest my day be today as the one before. Lest routine set my ways. 144. Yitkadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah. Bi'alma divrach irute, v'yamlich malchute, b'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chayei techol beit Yisrael. Bagala, bagala, uv'izman kariv, v'imru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevorach Le'olam Ul'almei Omaya Yitbarach Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitramam V'yitnasei V'yitadar V'yitaleh V'yitalal Shmei T'Kudesha Berichu Le'ela Min Kol Berchata V'shirata Tushbechata V'nechemata Damiran Be'alma V'meru Amen. 146. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Baruch et Adonai HaMevorach. Le'olam va'ed. 148, marveling at the mystery and the blessings, the gifts of the Sacred One as we encounter them, engage with them, and own our responsibility to be steward of the gifts of creation, the Divine One's natural world. Baruch Ata Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidva'aro ma'ariv aravim b'chokhma poteach she'arim, uvitvuna meshane etim, umachalif et hazmanim, ומסדר את הכוכבים במשמרותיהם, ברקיע כרצונו. בורא יום ולילה, גולל אור מפני חושך, וחושך מפני אור, ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו. אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, Ha'ma'ariv Aravim. 150, full of love and the capacity to receive and offer love. Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael Amcha Ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu lemadeta. Al ken Adonai Eloheinu, b'shochveinu v'kumeinu, nasiach b'chukecha, v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד, כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נהגה יומם ולילה, יומם ולילה, ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. This weekend we celebrate Shavuot, as I hold a ceremony of confirmation Sunday morning with our 9th and 10th graders, as we engage in Torah learning Sunday night at 10:30 p.m. into the wee hours of the morning, as we awake and gather at 5 a.m. at Kingston Point Beach for a sunrise Shavuot service. 151, John Rayner teaches Torah is what the source has revealed to us and what we discern of the sacred. Ideas and ideals, laws and mitzvot, and our best religious heritage. It unfolds our memories of Abraham and Sarah, of Miriam and Moses and the prophets. It is legislation and explanation, always allowing for questions, challenges, and cheshbon nefesh, soul searching as to how we are doing with our Torah. Questions and answers that inspire. All is a quest for meaning. It is a way of life, a path for our souls, and most specifically, the design for unlocking a better world. 152. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Malchuto le'olam va'ed, Baruch Shem Kvod Malchuto le'olam va'ed, Baruch Shem Kvod Malchuto le'olam va'ed, Baruch Shem Kvod Malchuto le'olam va'ed. 155. Love the source with every heartbeat, with every breath, with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children. Talk about them at work, whether you are tired or you are rested, whether they are challenging or easy. Let them guide the work of your hands. Let them guide the way that you interface with other human beings. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the doorway of your house or in your synagogue. They are reminders to do all of my mitzvot, so that you can be holy in the best image of the Divine One. I am Yud-He Vav-He, your source. I led you out of Egypt to become your source. I am HaShekhinah, your God. 159. Birkat Geula, the prayer that invites us to partner with the divine in bringing about peace. Sing the song of people joined in understanding and respect. The song of the source's miracles, and earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come. The song of a land once ravaged by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more. The song of a world redeemed, the song of peace. 158. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot o sefele, nora tehilot o sefele, malchutecha ra'u vanecha bokei hayam Lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, Ze'eli anu ve'ameru, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. V'ne'emar ki fad Adonai et Yaakov, ugalo miyad chazak mimenu, Baruch Ata Adonai Ga'al Yisrael. 161 and 160. We pray the Hashkivenu, asking for divine presence, shelter, and protection. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu. Hashkivenu, Leshalom. Ve'ha'amidenu, Shomrenu l'chaim. Ufros aleinu, Sukat shelomecha. Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu. Hashkivenu, Leshalom. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. One 164. שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Yalla lai lai lai, 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 yalla lai lai lai. Pray as if everything depended on the one Creator. Act as if everything depended on you. Tfilat Amidah, prayed belachash in a whisper so that each of us can find a place for our personal prayers, the unwritten prayer on this Shabbat Eve. Disturb us, Adonai. Ruffle us from our complacency. Make us dissatisfied with the peace of ignorance, the quietude which arises from a shunning of the horror, the defeat, the bitterness and the poverty, physical and spiritual, of humans. Shock us, Adonai. Deny to us the false Shabbat, which gives us the delusions of satisfaction amid a world of war and hatred. Wake us, O Source, and shake us from the sweet and sad poignancies rendered by half-forgotten melodies and rubric prayers of yesteryears. Make us know that the border of the sanctuary is not the border of living, and the walls of your temples are not shelters from the winds of truth, justice, and reality. Disturb us, O Source, and vex us. Let not your Shabbat be a day of torpor and slumber. Let it be time to be stirred and spurred to action. Hiyu liratzon Imre fi Vehekyon lipi Lefanecha Adonai tzuri Vegoali Adonai tzuri Vegoali Ose shalom bimromav Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Ya'aseh shalom, Ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, Ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Page 570. Tonight is the last night that we will be together to count the Omer. Tomorrow night will be the last night of the Omer. For 7 weeks, we have counted 7 days for 7 weeks. Tonight, reaching the 48th day. Tomorrow, the 49th day of the Omer. Ulamacharat, and the day after tomorrow, at sundown, will be Shavuot. Hineni muchanu mizuman, Hineni muchanahu mizumenet, Hineni muchanu mizuman, L'kayem mitzvat aseh. Hineni muchanu mizuman, Hineni muchanahu mizumenet, Hineni muchanu mizuman, Shel sfirat haomer. On this 48th day, Yesod Sheb Malchut, foundation within majesty, we give thanks for our teachers and guides. We give thanks for all we have learned. We give thanks for what our lives have revealed and for what we still stand to learn. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat haomer. Blessed is the mystery that flows through time and space. You infuse us with holiness and call us into connection through the counting of your Omer. Hayom, Arba'im v'shmone yom shehem Shisha Shvuot v'shisha yamim la'omer. Today is the 48th day, which is 6 weeks and 6 days of the Omer. We ask ourselves, what can I bring forth from the experience of my life? What do I have to teach? How can my words and actions reflect what I hold as most sacred? And what do I stand to learn? Psalm 119, I lift my hands to do mitzvot. I lift my hands to love. My paternal grandmother, Grandma Ida, was a woman of few possessions. She loved Israel. She lived simply. She wore the same clothes day in and day out until they were literally threadbare. She never got her hair done professionally. She never wore makeup or jewelry or nails. She was always cooking and lived to feed her family. She showered her grandchildren with endless love. When she died, we were tasked with cleaning out her apartment. My 5 sisters and I found 6 rings. 6 rings that we had never seen my grandmother wear. They were tucked away in her dresser. 6 rings. The perfect number, 1 ring for each of her granddaughters. But it wasn't easy deciding who would receive which ring. In fact, several of us wanted the same ring. And so when the tensions arose, we took a deep breath and stepped back and made a decision that in age order, we would each pick the ring that we wanted for ourselves, and we would give it to the sister younger than we. None of us ended up with the ring that we wanted. All of us ended up with the ring that we needed. On May 6th, protests by Palestinians began in Jerusalem. And the protests happened in response to the threat of eviction of scores of Palestinian residents in Sheikh Jarrah, the neighborhood in East Jerusalem. The protests escalated into violent confrontations between Jewish and Palestinian protesters. And the Israeli police moved into the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood and with excessive force quieted the Palestinians. On May 7th, the Israeli police stormed Al-Aqsa Mosque. It was the last day of the holy month of Ramadan, and there were literally 70,000 Muslim people in the Al-Aqsa compound. When the Israeli police came in, stormed the mosque, using stun guns and excessive force. Their justification for storming the mosque, perhaps because They had told the Muslim people that they could only gather up to 10,000 worshipers, and there were 7 times that number. Perhaps it was because there was an explicit desire to clear the area so that far-right Jewish extremists could worship at the Temple Mount. More than 300 people, mostly Palestinians, were injured. On May 10th, Hamas began firing rockets into Israel from the Gaza Strip, hitting multiple residences and schools. Aligning their attack with the threat of displacement of Palestinians from East Jerusalem, as well as the storming of the Al-Aqsa Mosque on Ramadan, Israel retaliated, launching a barrage of rockets on Gaza. What's really going on? Hamas leadership seized the plight of the Palestinians being displaced in places like Sheikh Jarrah and Silwan as a cover, as an excuse to attack Israel. And Israel responded with incredible force and presence because it was advantageous for the present interim government in Israel to allow the violence to escalate. In doing so, the government imagined they would get a mandate to form a new government. Israel seized the opportunity, while retaliating with rocket fire on Gaza, to target and impair a true threat of the underground Hamas network in Gaza that has been there and is there. And in the crossfire of the last 4, now going on 5 days of violence, we have experienced the worst Palestinian-Israeli violence in years. In hundreds of air and ground strikes by the Israeli army, at least 126 Gazans, including 31 children, have been killed. Several thousand rockets have been fired from Gaza into Israel. My family and friends, Israelis throughout the center of Israel, are sleeping in bomb shelters. Schools have been canceled, and 8 Israelis, including 1 child, have been killed. I trust that you are as shocked by these numbers as I am, but to put it in perspective, let me remind you that for the populations of Israel and Gaza, the magnitude of death that they have sustained in these last 4 days, the death toll can be compared to what we experienced at 9/11 in the United States. I am profoundly concerned for Israel, for my family, for my closest friends. My very best friend's daughter gave birth last week And her son, her infant son, and she have spent most of the nights of his first week of his life sleeping in a bomb shelter. And I am grieving the 8 Israeli citizens who lost their lives. And I am devastated by the loss of 126 citizens of Gaza. And I am heartbroken and profoundly incensed by the loss of the Israeli child and the 31 Gazan children. Because there is no reason for this. There is no need for this. And anyone who knows Israel, if you think you're one of those people that you know Israel, you need to know that this is not just one more round of violence like we've had before, the Palestinian-Israeli clash, because in addition to the clashes between Israel and Gaza, the violent clashes that have broken out, there have been violent clashes between Jews and Arabs in multiple Israeli cities, in Lod, in Akko, in Ramle, in Yafo. And the violence in the Israeli cities is nothing less than ethnic violence, racism, supremacy, specifically perpetrated by gangs of hoodlums, mobs of young right-wing fascist factions of Jewish settlers, most of them American-born thugs. These same thugs who in the last several weeks during Ramadan have marched through Jerusalem screaming and chanting death to Arabs. These right-wing thugs are lynching, violently attacking and beating Arab citizens a hair away from their death, surrounding cars, pulling them out of cars and beating them almost to death for no other reason than that these thugs have identified them as Arabs. And mobs of young Arab Israelis, thugs, violently lynching and attacking Jewish Israeli citizens for no other reason than that they have identified them as Jewish. This element of violence in this round of violence is different than anything else we have ever experienced in Israel. It is different than the violence between Hamas and Israel in the past, and it raises growing alarm that a fissure is erupting in Israel that can no longer be quieted. That there is an internal threat in Israel that seems to be moving Israel toward a civil war. I have to tell you from this bima, because it is truth-telling time, that there are Jewish thugs that have desecrated Muslim cemeteries. American-born Jewish right-wing thugs. And I have to tell you that there are Arab thugs who have vandalized synagogues and looted and destroyed two major symbols of Israel's ancient heritage in the old city of Accra, in Akko, and the Lod Mosaic Museum. I am saddened by the violence, and I am furious with my people, with my Israeli people, and I am furious with my Jewish American people. I am furious that you are surprised by the eruption of violence. What did you expect? It cannot be a surprise to us, because when we defer political power, political institutions, political governments to the right-wing extremist factions, when we concede as Jewish Americans that the only way for Israel to survive is with an oppressive hand against another, when we fail to insist on a vision and a future for Israel that guarantees hope and safety and dignity and opportunity and equality and basic human rights to the Palestinian people, how can we expect to be safe in Israel? We cannot succeed, not in America and not in Israel, when we concede our future to far-right extremists. And I'm going to share something with you from my heart. Listen to your rabbi. Israel's right to exist, which I firmly believe in with every fiber in my being, Israel's right to exist cannot be at the expense of suppressing another people in our midst. We must, if we are to live to our Jewish values, protect human life and human dignity of all people. We cannot achieve peace without protecting the rights of the Palestinian people. We need to see the other at the core of who we are. We need to see the other at the core of what we believe will be the solution for peace that we will pursue. If Palestinians are not secured, then Israelis are not secured. These are two people that both have a claim to the same land. Are you aware that 20% of the Israeli population, without the territories, are Palestinians? Are you aware that 40% of the population of Jerusalem is Palestinian? Jerusalem is not now and has never been a city that is a Jewish city alone. It is a place where Jews have legitimacy, and it is a place where Muslims have legitimacy. And if we want safety, then we must protect the rights and the safety of the Palestinians in our midst. There has never been, nor should we ever support, a claim, whether it's made by a right-wing government in Israel or whether it's made by a right-wing government in America that suggests that only one people has the sole rights and the sole claim to Jerusalem. It's a complicated history. And tonight I am giving a sermon, not a history lesson, but it's enough to say that when we gained our independence in 1948, the Palestinians experienced a Nakba, a disaster. 100,000 Palestinians were either pushed out or fled. 100,000 individuals who had homes and villages and neighborhoods in Israel. Yes, there are 35 There are 2,000 Jews who also lost their property in 1967 in East Jerusalem. And the Jordanians built a neighborhood for the Palestinians in these areas in East Jerusalem. And Palestinian families have been living there for generations, for decades. Let me say this to us. Palestinians should have rights in Jerusalem. They should have the right to vote, the right to not be displaced from their homes, the right to live with dignity and equality. Palestinians should have full and equal rights in every aspect of Israel. We can only survive if our laws are equitable and fair. If Palestinians can claim ownership, if Palestinians cannot claim ownership of the homes, of the 100,000 claims of homes that they were pushed out of or they abandoned in 1948 for their safety, then Jewish Israelis, especially American Jewish Israelis that weren't even in Israel, have no place in coming to East Jerusalem and trying to claim ownership of Palestinian homes that have not been owned by Jews for 40, 50, 60, or 70 years. If we are to thrive, we must thrive with a country that guarantees safety, security, and justice for all of its citizens. We need to call out police brutality. We need to stand up to unjust displacements of citizens from their homes. We need to call out the targeting of Palestinian neighborhoods as part of a right-wing agenda for making Jerusalem Jewish. Jerusalem has always been and should always be a mix of opposing and different and contradictory ethnicities and faiths and practices and religions. And we should be protecting each other's rights of difference and of coexistence. We need to get clear on this weekend that pours into Shavuot when we talk about living by Torah, that our safety and our survival and our future is directly linked to the safety and the future and the survival of the other in our midst. Ve'ahavta L're'acha kamocha. My friends, we will only be safe, and we will only survive when we truly begin to see and honor and protect the humanity, not just of our own, but especially of the other, of the Palestinian people in neighboring lands, and most of all, the Palestinian Israelis. This evening, I am calling on every one of you, my congregation, to mourn the 31 Gazan children, together with the Israeli child, as if each and every one of them, each and every one of those 32 children were your child. These 32 children whose lives have been cut short because of our inability to insist on, to fight for, to speak out for, and to pave the path of peace with those that are other than us. And there is hope. There is hope, because in those protests in East Jerusalem, there were Jewish Israelis standing shoulder to shoulder with the Palestinian Israelis. There is hope, because the majority of Israeli citizens don't want to be occupiers, and they don't want Palestinians to suffer. It's a minority of Jews and a minority of Palestinians that are taking to the street as thugs. There is hope. But we will only get there if there is shared pain and shared hope and shared land and shared humanity and shared peace. My grandma, Ida, asked that when I got off the plane for the first time as a toddler, as a little girl in Israel, that I would kiss the ground for her. She was a Zionist, but she never made it to Israel. I was able to settle and live in Israel, to fulfill my own and her dream of becoming an Israeli citizen. If Israel is to survive, we need to protect that precious land and all those that have the right to dwell safely in its borders. $657. עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו ועל כולם. עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו ועל כולם. סלام עלינו ועל כל העולם. סלام, שלום. סלام עלינו ועל כל העולם. סלام, שלום. Ojavo Shalom Aleinu, Ojavo Shalom Aleinu, Ojavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Ojavo Shalom Aleinu, Ojavo Shalom Aleinu, Ojavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Turning to page 371. We begin by directing our prayers to all of the Palestinians that have been wounded, to all of the Israelis that have been wounded, and to the families of those that have been killed. May you find peace, may you find comfort, may you find healing as our country, I pray, heals. Bringing prayers of healing to members of our congregation, David Anderson, Amanda Batista, Susan Bosch, Jenny Bryant, Tom Burrows, Audrey Cohen, Barbara Cohen, Robert Cohen, Adele Corvin, Tyler Corvin, Louis Costello, Bob Davis, John Gautier, Joey Gross, Ron Hall, Anna Hernandez, Joe Horowitz, Darren Jacobs, Judy Jacobs, Seth Kerr, Andrea Klein, Mary Jane Klein, Lou Klein, Leah Levine, Olaya, Paul Markovitz, Reverend Michelle Meach, Joe Michaels, Moshe Yosef, Howard Pellet, Stephanie Payusko, Carla Friedman, Ellie Edelwitz, Tony Rosenstein, Robin Stone, Ellen Vogeloff, George Wells, Celeste Jaron, Aaron Jacob, and Zachary Whittam, Ben Wilder, Phyllis Woolfield, Gretchen Zimmerman. Continued healing for all of the loved ones who have been added to our healing list, who are on their way to healing. Mi sheberach avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mekor habracha le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. 598. We hold now in our hearts the loved ones who have recently died, all of those who are remembering their loved ones during their year, their Shana of grief. We hold in our hearts loved ones who died in this season in years past. Ida Baker, Aaron Cohen, Jacob Greenwald, Fanny Honig, Aaron Himes, Jonas Jacobs, Lester Jacobs, Debbie Kalish's cousin, Minnie Jacobs, Frank Lestrange, Carmel Gold's uncle, Jacob Lerner, Paul Ryder, remembered by Paul Ryder, Cantor Julian C. Lohr, Rhoda Lohr's beloved husband, and our congregation's beloved Cantor Emeritus, Barney Mann, Samuel J. Reiber, Sarah R. Reiber, Ann Sherry, Estelle Weil, Bernice Weinstein, Wilbur Wiesel, remembered by Robert Wiesel, Robert Wiesel's father. Lo yisagoy al goy cherev, velo yilmadu od milchama. May nation no longer pick up sword against nation or no war anymore. We hold those killed in the violence in Israel and Gaza in our prayers this evening. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, bi'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei decho beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv imru amen. Yehei shmei rabba mevorach le'olam ulalmei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudesha b'richu. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tush b'chata v'nechemata da'amiram bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya. V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol b'nei Adam, v'imru. Amen. Page 658, Shir L'Shalom, a prayer for peace. I love every word of this prayer, but especially, don't wait for peace. Sing it out. Bring peace with every fiber in your body. American Jews, you have a role here. You can insist on an Israel, on Jewish values, and a Judaism that reflects our best Jewish values. Tnu l'shemesh la'alot, la'boker le'ha'ir, hazaka Shabbat filot, otanu lo tachzir, mi asher kavanero, uve'afar nitman, bechimar lo ya'iru, lo yachziru lechan. Ish otanu lo yashiv, mibor tachtit afel, kan lo yo'ilu, lo simchat hanitzachon, velo shirei halel. Lachen rak shiru shir l'shalom, al tilachshu tfilah, mutav tashiru shir l'shalom, b'tza'aka gdola. Tnu l'shemesh l'chador, miba'ad l'prachim, al tabitu le'achor, hanichu lahochim. Su einayim b'tikva, lo derech kavanot. Shiru shir la'ahava, ולא למלחמות. אל תגידו יום יבוא, הביאו את היום, כי לא חלום הוא בכל הכיכרות, הריעו לשלום. It is not just a dream. We can have peace. Shabbat Shalom.